India will have a new Prime Minister. Hindu nationalist Narendra Modi has campaigned on a platform of development and economic recovery. He's seen by some as the country's saviour. Others say he's a divisive figure. So what does his victory mean for India and the region? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mike Hanna. It's the largest exercise in democracy the world has ever seen. 551 million Indians went to the polls over a 5-week period. And the candidate of choice, Narendra Modi, whose Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, has won a landslide victory, his National Democratic Alliance winning a massive majority in Parliament. Let's begin with this report from Nidhi Dutt.
A new political chapter in the world's largest democracy. Welcomed with a loud bang and a burst of colour. At the Bharatiya Janata Party's headquarters in New Delhi, victory celebrations started early. Party supporters gathered to revel in what transpired to be a landslide victory led by Narendra Modi.
I'm so happy with the people, and I bow to you and I thank you for all the love that you have shown me. Sisters and brothers, I am thanking you from the bottom of my heart. I respect and salute you.
Before the first results were announced, the party held prayers in anticipation of a good performance. But most BJP supporters viewed the final tally as a mere formality. They described the party's win as a new start for the country. We used to look to the West for support and development, but now we are going to be the kind of country that people from other countries turn to for help and support.
We respect all religions. Modi will take care of people from all faiths. He's done it before and he will do it again.
In stark contrast to this euphoria, the leading Congress party's office was deserted. This election result is the worst in the party's history. Only the media stayed in position to hear from Congress President Sonia Gandhi.
We respect the third decision that has been made, but we also wish and we hope that in the future, whosoever government will be formed, they will do the best for the country. I will congratulate the new government.
As the outcome of more than a month of polling became clear, a victory wall set up by the BJP filled up quickly.
This is the first time in independent India's history that a non-Congress party has won a majority on its own. The BJP called on Indians to vote for change. They've done just that, and after nearly 10 years in opposition, India's People's Party has returned to government with a massive mandate. Nidhi Dutt, Al Jazeera, New Delhi.
Well, the huge majority means Narendra Modi can exercise policy without the restraint of coalition partners. It's a policy that's been clearly expressed in the campaign. The Prime Minister-elect is adamant India's most pressing problems are poverty and underdevelopment. And Modi has promised robust reform of the economy. He's pledged to build bullet trains, hydroelectric power plants, manufacturing hubs and dozens of cities. The intention that India rival China, the economic powerhouse next door. His stated commitment to create a better India for all, including minority groups. This of particular concern to the country's 150 million Muslims who are wary of a man who declares himself a proud Hindu nationalist. And on foreign policy, Modi has promised a tough stance on the disputed area of Kashmir, accusing the outgoing government of conducting a policy of appeasement towards neighbouring Pakistan. So what is next for India and its new Prime Minister? To discuss this, I'm joined by our guests. In New Delhi, Shruti Kapila, she's a Fellow and Director of Studies in History at Corpus Christi College at the University of Cambridge. She teaches Indian political history. And also in New Delhi, K.C. Singh, former Indian career diplomat and a strategic affairs analyst. And joining me here on set is Bharat Bhushan. He's a journalist and senior academic consultant, the Indian Council for Social Science Research. Welcome to you all. Let's begin with Shruti Kapila in New Delhi. It's a massive victory and, importantly, a very large percentage poll, some 66%, 8% higher than the last election, indicating that a large number of first-time voters actually cast their ballots.
That's correct. I mean, this is a huge mandate, but also India has bucked the global trend of anti-politics that we've seen in mature liberal democracies such as America and Britain. However, this mandate also points, as you rightly say, at the new 100 million voters who have perhaps cast their lot with Modi. I think it's very interesting to see the presidentialization of the world's largest parliamentary democracy. We've had a kind of American-style campaign with big money and carpet bombing of the media for several months, and as it were, Modi's one-man machine politician against the party system itself. So what we actually have is also an identity crisis for political parties in India. What are they here for now is the million-dollar question. The BJP itself will face a crisis because its stalwarts have been swept aside for the making of Modi's power. And similarly, the Congress today stands all but completely decimated, with garnering its lowest turnout of seats in its history. So I think the crisis today will be for the idea of parliamentary democracy. You mentioned China, so it's very interesting that if China can have capitalism without democracy, I think what we are seeing is a very powerful executive presidentialization in parliamentary democracy in India.
Well, Bharat Bhushan, apologies for interrupting
conclude.
Shruti, but Bharat Bhushan, I'd like to get your view on that, the crisis of identity, the shift in the political system itself that may be becoming apparent.
Well, there is certainly a shift, but I don't think we should think that it's going to become a one-man democracy. You know, parties live on to fight another day. They rejig themselves, they reinvent themselves. I'm sure the Congress party will also reinvent itself, and so would the other political parties. There is no guarantee that Mr. Modi will deliver on all the promises he's made. They're pretty tall promises, and he comes with a corporate agenda. So he has to balance the demands of mass democracy with that of the demands of the corporates and the shareholding classes. It's not an easy job. Should he fail, other parties will revive. So I don't think we should worry too much. You know, this happens in a democracy. People have voted for him. Well, good luck to him. And we'll live to fight another day and make this country more democratic.
Well, Ambassador K.C. Singh, is this the end, though, of the Nehru-Gandhi dynasty?
I don't think so. I think they have reinvented themselves in the past. And don't forget, they still have about 24-25% of the national vote, that a quarter of the people are with them. BJP having gone up to mid-30s. So there is still a huge reach that they have in India. And they have state governments in a number of important states like Karnataka, Kerala, and so on and so forth. But yes, it's a huge setback. They had never fallen below 114 members of parliament, and now they're down to 48 or so. And this is really as low as they could possibly have got. But more than that, it is, I think, as Congress said, an ideological battle. Somehow, I think UPA, the government which is going out now in its second phase, they were very successful in their first one from 2004 to 9, but 9 to 14, they lost their way. Their distributive kind of politics, which was growth later, distributive justice alongside or even before it, began to come apart because there were a lot of scandals involving corruption, serious allegations of corruption, and a slowdown of the economy and persistent inflation. Now with that, the distributive justice obviously came apart. Now Modi is talking of the other approach, which is the more right-of-center approach, and he talks of the Gujarat model, which is basically growth-oriented and a top-down filtering of the benefits. Now this, for a country India's size with the kind of poverty and problems that you have, he's managed to reap a lot of frustration and anger in the public with the corruption scandals. But the promises are very, very, very general. They're very diverse, and he's reaching out to the aspirational aspect of the Indian population. Now, is he able to then deliver on that? That is the whole question, and I think it will be tested very, very soon. And that is where Congress will wait, other parties will wait, and then they will start holding him accountable if he can't deliver. Because he has a majority and he really has no excuse now to turn around and say.
Exactly. You mentioned there the majority. I mean, Shruti Kapila, that this massive majority that he's got in Parliament, there are no excuses for him not to exercise the policies that he's outlined on the stump.
Absolutely. Absolutely, except that I don't think there's an ideological unity behind, as it were, the affiliates. For instance, the RSS, which is the largest, said to be the largest volunteer body which has secured his power base, is actually protectionist when it comes to the economy. So he will have internal pressures. His opposition is likely to come from internal factors rather than from a complacent Congress. The Congress has come across as entirely complacent. I don't think it's simply about corruption, because corruption, if you realize, BJP Chief Minister in Uttarakhand lost his post, and so was the Gujarat government, wrapped by the Controller General of India. So I don't think corruption is a party political issue, except that it got associated with the Congress. I think the issue with the Congress is that it absolutely lost touch and incited anger in the people. And the turning point there is the Delhi gang rape, when in the middle of the winter, hundreds of thousands came out, and it took the Congress government more than 48 hours to send a representative to even speak to the people who had been protesting. So this was a government which lost, as it were, the people's mandate around that time. Corruption then became a very, very powerful trope and issue around which to rally and hold the Congress together. I think these are all issues that will also vex Mr. Modi, because he will have to think about how to reform the institutional architecture. Because after all, and this is the last point on this matter, the democratic institutions of this country are rather vulnerable. The Election Commission this time round has come under flak for corrupt and malpractices. So have other bodies here. How he goes about reforming those are almost as important as what he does with the economy.
Well, yes, Bharat Bhushan, there is no real clean slate here, is there? There is an inherited, institutionalized set of systems that are part of this massive country. It's very difficult for a man coming in, a new government, to actually start just completely cleanly.
Oh, absolutely. Any prime minister who comes inherits these institutions. But if you look at his record in Gujarat, did he run an accountable government? The answer is no. Did he run a government which was accountable to an ombudsman? For 8 years, he did not appoint an ombudsman, and and when a new ombudsman was appointed, his own office, that was the chief minister, and was kept out of his ambit. So I'm saying that you're assuming that he wants to clean up. He may want to change the institutions to his own benefit, to his own liking.
Well, Casey Singh, your opinion on that. Do you think that there is going to be a cleanup of the corruption that we've heard outlined and discussed during the election campaign as well?
I have a feeling that he'll take on some big ticket cases and definitely go ahead and make an issue out of it and make an example of some of the people. Because on corruption, he'll have to send a signal that there is zero tolerance as far as he is concerned, and he's different from those who preceded him. Now, he may get bogged down in that, because many of those people that he may go after are also his supporters. Many of them are companies. You take one of the major oil and gas companies in India, which needs an increase in the price of gas. And one of the new opposition groups that came up, it's called the Aam Aadmi Party, which has risen very rapidly, and it's only won 4 seats this time. But they made a big issue out of it, and they said this is crony capitalism. So the Congress government, before they demitted office, they doubled the price of gas, then they held it up. And now that is where it is. So Mr. Modi will have to take a call on that. And these are companies which have had petrochemical plants in his old state, in Gujarat. Will he be seen as bending to them? Will he be seen as accommodating them? Because petty corruption is one thing. Another thing that the public wants is some separation between some division of responsibilities where people in power have nothing to do with businesses, with running businesses or business interests. So this has unfortunately not been something where Indian politics has been cleansed because of the need, as Bharat said, for money which you need for running election campaigns, which are very, very expensive. So it feeds into electoral reform. So corruption, removal of corruption is not a single window, single act exercise which can remove it. It's a systemic reform combined with, of course, addressing the problems of the common man. And that is a huge task for which he has to carry his party with him, he has to carry opposition parties with him, he has to carry the states with him. And that is the single most important thing in case of the Indian Prime Minister. He doesn't have a police force, unlike a chief minister of a state. He doesn't control land, he doesn't have physical things, but he has the bully pulpit. He can stand, lead the country, he can create consensus behind policy changes. But so far, Mr. Modi has been seen as a divisive figure. He's not been seen as a consensus maker, as a person who guides through building consensus and big ticket ideas. So he'll be tested. He'll be tested because Parliament is an entirely different game from running a state.
Indeed, yes. Let's hear from Shruti Kapila on that particular subject. The state, Gujarat, many argued was like a fiefdom. Now you're looking at running a country. It's a totally different ball game in a way. And that issue of him being a divisive character, how much is that going to impact on his government's performance?
Well, yes, there's no denying the fact that he is the most divisive leader that India has seen since independence. However, the mandate has also given him a kind of confidence that few could have boasted about, perhaps unlike just Nehru. I mean, the only other person you can think of is in the 1950s and the first Prime Minister. But Mr. Bhushan earlier, in a way, kind of, agreed with me when he said that this is not a particularly democratically responsible figure, because the Gujarat government has hardly had very many sittings in the assembly. I think so. This is where we will see a very heavy hand of the executive once more, much more like Mrs. Gandhi in the 70s and 80s. And I think his responsibility to Parliament will have to be checked from the outside, because in Parliament they have an overwhelming support. This is unlike just under 70 seats with the opposition. This is a crisis because India probably is not even going to have a leader of the opposition at this rate. So I think his checks and balances will come not from Parliament, but they will come from outside. I would imagine the Supreme Court is going to be an important venue and avenue of contestation of authority, where a large number of these corruption cases are going to be decided, as well as the question of what is the relationship between big business and politics. This is also a turning point in Indian history, where for the first time you have seen big business having a direct impact on the elections. So Modi will also have to balance the competing interests of some of the top houses who will also pressurize him in different ways. One is, of course, energy, but there's also infrastructure. There are a large number of kind of oligarchic style business practices that are going around here. So
well,
I think this is
apologies for interrupting, Shruti,
but
but I just want to move away from the economy and go to Bharat Bush on the issue of minorities. Now, in the campaign, he was absolutely adamant that he will work for all of India, that there are no minorities, all people are Indian, yet his record in Gujarat calls that into question. Do you think that the 150 million Muslims, for example, have reason to be wary of his government?
They would be apprehensive because of his image. His image is that of an aggressive, authoritarian, polarizing leader. And as you said, the history of Gujarat riots of 2002, which happened under his watch. He may claim that he's got a clean chit from the courts, but the evidence was provided by his own government and his policemen. So we don't know whether all the evidence was provided, not provided. So there are lingering suspicions in people's minds about his role in the 2002 riots. But leave that aside. He has not fielded a single Muslim candidate from Gujarat, which has a large Muslim population. So if he wanted to send a signal to them, why didn't he do that? In Uttar Pradesh, he has not fielded a single Muslim candidate. You can't tell me that there were no winnable candidates amongst Muslims. So all these things, the perception has to be corrected by him. And I don't think he's managed to do it as yet. Just merely saying that I'm an inclusive Prime Minister is not going to wash. It will have to be demonstrated.
Casey Singh, your view on that. Do you think that it is perception, or do you think that it is a fundamental part of Modi's makeup?
I have a feeling that he wants to put that behind him. It's a period that he's been trying to bury, though he may not have apologized. He may not wear a Muslim cap when it was offered to him in public, but he says that is tokenism. I don't want to go into that kind of tokenism. I believe in fundamental change. But essential thing is that a Prime Minister really doesn't have that much of authority in either starting a riot or controlling it. These are state subjects. And many of the large states are not under the BJP. They are under rival politicians who control the police there and control the law and order in those states. However, as we go along, many of those states will face elections, and depending on Modi's record, his party may or may not be able to win there. And that'll be interesting. And two of the big ones will go to elections within 6 months. One is Maharashtra, and the other one is Haryana, just next door from here. And so he will be tested pretty soon, because India has this cycle of periodic state elections where your popularity is tested, a bit like the US system, where they're tested, where a president is tested every 2 years when you have the congressional elections. Here it's almost annually, some set of states or the other go to elections. So he'll have to be wary of how he implements what he has said, and whether he puts his money where his mouth is, we'll know as he goes along.
Well, part perhaps of the checks and balances that Shruti Kapila referred to. But Shruti, I want to move on as well now, foreign policy. This obviously a major issue on the campaign, during the campaign. He was absolutely adamant, India first, against what he called a policy of appeasement, particularly with regard to Pakistan. Does that neighbor have the right to also be feeling wary?
Well, yes, I mean, I think it links up with the question of minorities, and very quickly to say that actually India now looks more and more like its neighbors, which is, it has a very majoritarian outlook with a full mandate to a big community-based identity party. So I don't think it would be, this is something that can be moved on from very easily. But by the same token, I think Modi will try and position himself differently. I'd like to hear from Ambassador Singh what he thinks he will do with Iran, for instance. Because, of course, we know his hawkish stance on Pakistan, but India's relationship with Iran is going through some sort of transformation. Moreover, he also has reputational issues with America being quite dismissive of his record in Gujarat. So I think the foreign and the domestic are very deeply related in Modi's case, particularly around the question of Muslims at home, but also around how he might position himself vis-a-vis America, but also regional powers like Iran.
Well, very quickly, Casey Singh, your opinion on that, the foreign policy that one will see emerge?
Look, there's a lot of election rhetoric which was involved, and he did make some statements which made Bangladesh very uncomfortable. But he has carried the state of Assam by talking of infiltration from across the border, a bit like his panic issue in the US elections. Even Pakistan took some of his remarks amiss when he talked of how US took out Osama bin Laden and they didn't take their permission. He didn't say we should do the same with some of the fugitives that we are seeking, but that was implicit in it. Iran is different. Traditionally, BJP has had a very good relationship with Iran, because of it having Shia population, and Shia population traditionally has supported the BJP, and Prime Minister Vajpayee used to fight from Lucknow, which is a Shia town, and now the president of BJP has taken that seat. So Shia votes have traditionally come to them. So they would certainly move for a different reason, because as the US troops move out of Afghanistan, anyway Iran assumes importance. And moreover, in any case, P5+1 talks with Iran are at a fairly advanced stage. So the issue which was causing an irritation in India's relations with Iran, where West was keeping us on watch, was the nuclear issue. So if that is going to get settled, then of course that irritant is out of the way, and Iran starts resuming normal trade and commerce with the rest of the countries. But India would be very, very happy that those impediments are out of the way. But geopolitically, yes, Iran is very important. It creates a balance in the Gulf. It creates a balance vis-a-vis Afghanistan. And India would be reaching out to them in any case, whatever government you had.
Well, with that summary, we come to an end of the show, having just scratched the surface on a number of issues. My thanks to our guests in New Delhi, Shruti Kapila, Casey Singh, and on set here, Bharat Bhushan. And you can follow this discussion online at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story or tweet us at AJ Inside Story. From everyone here, I'm Mike Hanna. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.